Brutus and Caesar. He was the last face Caesar expected to see, holding a knife. That's what made it work. On March 15th, 44 BC, Julius Caesar walked into the theater of Pompey for a Senate meeting. He had been warned. A soothsayer told him to beware the Ides of March. His wife begged him not to go. Caesar went anyway. He was the most powerful man in the world. At least 60 conspirators were waiting. They surrounded him on the Senate floor. The first blade came from Servilius Casca, a stab to the neck. Caesar fought back, grabbing Casca's arm. Then the others closed in. 23 wounds in total. But Caesar didn't stop struggling until he saw one face. Marcus Brutus. The man Caesar had mentored, pardoned, and promoted. The man some historians believe was his illegitimate son. When Caesar saw Brutus with a dagger, he pulled his toga over his face and stopped resisting. According to Suetonius, his final words were directed at Brutus. Even you, child. Brutus believed the assassination would save the Roman Republic. Instead, the public rioted. Mark Antony turned the crowd against the conspirators by displaying Caesar's body and reading his will, which left money to every citizen. Brutus fled within days. The Republic collapsed into 13 years of civil war. Brutus died by suicide at the Battle of Philippi in 42 BC. Caesar's adopted heir Octavian emerged as sole ruler and became Augustus, the first emperor. The Republic was dead. The thing Brutus feared most, one man with absolute power, became permanent because of what he did to prevent it. Mir Jafar and the fall of Bengal. He sold an empire for a throne. Then the people who bought it took everything. In 1757, Bengal was the richest province in India. Its capital, Murshidabad, was larger than London. Its textile industry supplied half of Europe. The man who ruled it was Siraj-ud-Dowlah, a 23-year-old Nawab surrounded by people who wanted him gone. Chief among them was Mir Jafar, commander of the Nawab's army. He made a deal with the British East India Company. When battle came, Jafar would hold his 15,000 troops back. In exchange, the British would make him the new Nawab. The Battle of Plassey on June 23, 1757, was barely a battle. The Nawab had 50,000 soldiers. Robert Clive had 3,000. Mir Jafar sat in his tent while loyal forces were cut apart. By day's end, Siraj was fleeing. He was captured and executed. Jafar was placed on the throne. Then the British collected their payment. They emptied the treasury. They imposed trade monopolies. They treated Jafar as a puppet, replacing him when he objected, reinstalling him when his replacement proved worse. He died in 1765, broken and powerless, ruling nothing. British control of Bengal gave the East India Company the revenue to conquer the rest of India. Bengal itself was gutted. In 1770, the Great Bengal Famine killed an estimated 10 million people while the company continued extracting taxes from the dying. Mir Jafar wanted a throne. He got a title. The British got an empire. In India today, his name is a synonym for traitor. It's the worst thing you can call a man. Aldrich Ames. He was the CIA's top Soviet analyst. He was also the KGB's most valuable spy. For 9 years, Aldrich Ames sat at the center of CIA counterintelligence against the Soviet Union, while selling every secret he touched to Moscow. At least 10 agents, men who had risked their lives to spy for the United States from inside the Soviet system, were identified and executed because Ames gave the KGB their names. By the 1980s, Ames was running the CIA's Soviet counterintelligence branch. He knew every source, every cover story, every handler. In April 1985, he walked into the Soviet embassy in Washington and offered it all for $50,000. Within months, CIA sources across the globe started vanishing. Dmitry Polyakov, a major general who had spied for the CIA for over 2 decades, was arrested and shot. Adolf Tolkachev, a defense researcher who had provided invaluable intelligence, was executed. One by one, men who trusted the United States with their lives were killed because one man decided they were worth less than his mortgage payment. The CIA knew it had a mole. The losses were too sudden, too precise, but they spent nearly a decade looking in the wrong places. Ames continued working at the agency the entire time. He drove a Jaguar to headquarters. He paid cash for a $540,000 house. Nobody asked how. The FBI arrested him in February 1994. Total payments, $4.6 million, with another $2 million promised. He was sentenced to life without parole. He never expressed remorse. 10 men executed. An entire intelligence network dismantled in months. And the man who did it sat in the building every morning, drank coffee, and sold everything before lunch. Ephialtes and the 300 Spartans. One man showed the Persians a hidden path. It cost Greece its greatest warriors. In 480 BC, King Xerxes invaded Greece with the largest army Europe had yet seen. Standing in his way at the narrow pass of Thermopylae was King Leonidas of Sparta, with his 300 personal guard and several thousand allied Greeks. The geography was perfect. The pass was so tight the Persians couldn't use their numbers. For 2 days, the Greeks held. Wave after wave of Persian infantry was cut down. Xerxes sent his elite immortals. The Greeks killed them too. Then a local Greek farmer named Ephialtes went to Xerxes and told him about a secret mountain path, the Anapeia Trail, that circled behind the Greek position. Xerxes sent his immortals up overnight. By morning, the Greeks were surrounded. Leonidas dismissed most of the allied troops and stayed behind with his 300 Spartans to cover the retreat. They fought to the last man. The Persians marched south and burned Athens. But the sacrifice bought Greece time. The fleet destroyed the Persian navy at Salamis. The following year, a united Greek army crushed Xerxes at Plataea. Persia retreated and never invaded Europe again. Greek civilization survived. Ephialtes got nothing. The Greeks placed a bounty on his head. He fled and was eventually killed. His name became the Greek word for nightmare. 2,500 years later, it still is. Wang Jingwei. He was China's greatest revolutionary hero. Then he shook hands with Japan and became its greatest traitor. In 1910, Wang Jingwei was the most admired man in China. At 27, he had attempted to assassinate the Prince Regent of the Qing dynasty. The plot failed. He was sentenced to life, but instead of begging for mercy, he wrote poetry celebrating dying for China's freedom. The poems spread nationwide. When the Qing fell in 1912, Wang was released as a hero, standing beside Sun Yat-sen as a founding figure of the Republic. For 2 decades, Wang sat at the center of Chinese politics. He served as head of the nationalist government. He competed with Chiang Kai-shek for party control. He was a gifted orator, an idealist, and increasingly convinced that Chiang's leadership would destroy the nation. In 1937, Japan invaded. The war was catastrophic. The Nanjing Massacre killed an estimated 200,000 to 300,000 civilians. Chiang retreated inland and vowed to fight on. Wang believed the war was unwinnable, that continued resistance only meant more suffering. In December 1938, Wang fled to the Japanese side. In March 1940, he established a collaborationist government in Nanjing. He declared himself the legitimate head of state. He claimed he was saving Chinese lives through peace. His regime was a puppet state. Japan controlled everything. Wang's government provided a Chinese face for an army that was burning villages, conducting experiments on prisoners, and enslaving millions. Every handshake with a Japanese officer was a knife in the back from one of China's own. Wang died in November 1944. When Japan surrendered, Chiang's government dynamited his tomb and scattered his remains. His name was erased from monuments. In China today, Wang Jingwei is the definition of betrayal. No amount of past heroism survived the moment he chose the wrong side. Benedict Arnold. He won America its revolution. Then he tried to hand it back to the British. Before he was a traitor, Benedict Arnold was the best general George Washington had. At the Battle of Saratoga in 1777, the most important American victory of the war, Arnold led the charge that broke British lines. He rode into enemy fire, rallied retreating troops, and stormed a fortification while a musket ball shattered his leg. Saratoga convinced France to join the war. Without French support, the revolution almost certainly fails. Without Arnold, Saratoga almost certainly fails, and the United States treated him like garbage. He was passed over for promotion repeatedly. Congress questioned his expenses. Other generals took credit for his victories. After Saratoga, Horatio Gates, who spent the entire battle behind the lines, received all the glory. Arnold was broke, wounded, and humiliated by a country he had nearly died for. In 1779, he began secretly corresponding with the British. He offered them West Point, the fortress that controlled the Hudson River and held the entire American defensive strategy together. In exchange, 20,000 pounds and a British commission. The plot was discovered in September 1780, when Arnold's British contact was captured, carrying the plans. Arnold fled to a British ship hours before Washington arrived. When Washington was told, he reportedly whispered, "Arnold has betrayed us. Whom can we trust now?" Arnold fought the rest of the war for Britain, raiding his former countrymen in Virginia and Connecticut. After the war, he moved to London, where he was treated as a curiosity, never a hero. He died in 1801, at 60, in debt and forgotten. In America, his name became the only word needed. Benedict Arnold. No explanation required, no context necessary. The man who could have been remembered as one of America's greatest heroes is instead the only name Americans remember for betrayal.